Sidney Renwick, and Raoul Rothblatt. Dear Mr. Heschel, pursuant to Article 3, Section 1B of the Community Action Board bylaws for the City of New York, I am designating Sidney Renwick, Chief of Staff, on my staff as my representative at the Community Action Board meetings. Ms. Renwick can be reached by email or by telephone. I am also designating Raoul Rothblatt, District Director, as an alternate representative should Ms. Renwick not be able to attend the meeting. Mr. Rothblatt may be reached by email or by telephone. Sincerely, Brian A. Cunningham, New York State Assembly, District 43 of Brooklyn. Guys, welcome aboard. Thank you very much for attending and being part of this. Dear Karen Papi Gonzalez, pursuant to Article 3 of Section 1B of Community Action Board bylaws for the City of New York, I am designating Christopher Pack Ho, Director of Chinatown Policy and Liaison, on my staff as my representative at Community Action Board meetings. Mr. Ho may be reached by email or telephone. I'm also designating Bernice Navarrete Perez, Budget Director, as an alternate representative should Mr. Ho not be available to attend a meeting. Ms. Bernice Navarrete Perez may be reached by email or by telephone. Sincerely, Christopher Marty, New York City Council Member, District 1. Welcome aboard. Thank you very much. Dear Mr. Heschel, due to the absence of Mr. Nelson Palicio for the January 25th meeting, I am appointing Mr. Angel Gow, Jr., Deputy Director of Education and Youth Services, to attend on behalf of the Office of the Bronx Borough President. If you have any questions, please contact Nelson Palacios, my Education Director. Sincerely yours, Vanessa L. Gibson, Bronx Borough President. Welcome. This is addressed to Commissioner Howard. Dear Mr. Howard, I'm running to appoint Joshua Pacheco as my representative on the community board, part of the Department of Youth and Community Development, DYCD. Joshua has a deep interest in the work of the board and will be a great resource and asset. Please list Joshua as my representative and ensure that he receives all board materials. Joshua may be reached by phone or email. Sincerely, Brett Lander, New York City Controller. Joshua, welcome. Thank you. Dear Mr. Heschel, pursuant to Article 3, Section 1B of Community Action Board bylaws for the City of New York, I am designating Mr. Alex Cuvas, my apologies, on my staff as my representative at the Community Action Board. It may be reached by email or telephone. I'm designating Ms. Christine Delios, Communications Coordinator, as an alternate representative should Mr. Cuevas not be able to attend the meeting. They'd be reached by email or telephone. You can also contact my Chief of Staff, Ms. Tankwa Strong. Sincerely, Roxanne J. Prasad, Senator of the 19th District. Welcome. Dear Mr. Heschel, pursuant to Article 3, Section 1B of the Community Action Board bylaws for the City of New York, I am designating Tiffany Argello on my staff as my representative at the Community Action Board meeting. Ms. Argello may be reached by email or by telephone. I'm also designating Nicholas Thompson, Communications Specialist, as an alternate representative should Ms. Argello not be able to attend a meeting. Mr. Thompson may be reached by email or by telephone. Sincerely, Vito J. Fosello, Staten Island Borough President. Welcome aboard. Thank you. I want to thank each and every one of you for joining this board. We look forward to working together with all of you. We thank you for your dedication. Before we begin the public hearing, as we have new members of the board, it was a great suggestion that by Commissioner Mike Bobbitt, that we should have a buddy system where the senior members of the board would be more than happy to buddy up and assist with the new members to give them a better understanding of how the board operates and how we can all work together efficiently to do what we do best. So please feel free to reach out to any of us. We'd all be very happy to assist you and work with you. Thank you. Now we can finally come to the public hearing, which we waited for many meetings to bring this to the board in order to be able to vote on it. It gives me great pleasure to ask Adele Bartlett, the Assistant General Counsel, to come up and present it, and I hope that the members of the board had a moment to read the resolution before Adele, speaks to us about it.
Yes. Too many of them. What we want to do with this public hearing is answer any questions that you have about the resolution. The resolution is required to be passed in order to take advantage of the exceptions in the current open meetings law. As you know, in July, the governor and the mayor decided not to continue the emergency orders. When that happened, we went back to the open meetings law the way it was before the emergencies. The only way that we can have any exceptions to allow people to participate via video conferencing is by passing this resolution, in which case, if we pass the resolution, they will be able to, under extraordinary circumstances, such as being out of town, or their childcare fell through, or they're ill for the day, or whatever, to participate by video conference. Under those circumstances, they will not count toward quorum. So we still have to have in-person quorum. But the other exception in the law, should we pass this reso after a hearing, is that people who are actually permanently disabled can also participate by teleconference. If they do that and they are deemed eligible for that exception, they will count toward quorum. Okay, so it is very important. Okay, does anybody need a copy of the resolution? Okay, lots of people, Anita. The resolution, just in the whereas clauses, recites the need for the resolution. It relates back to the statute and says basically what I just said. Now, the statute sunsets June 30th. And we know in Albany, people are coming up with a different configuration. But we need to have our meetings to take care of the business between now and then. So are you calling as a hearing happening?
Yes, this open hearing is now officially taking place.
Let me know if anybody has any questions or comments.
Any questions regarding this resolution?
If the member is
Just state your name for the record, please.
If the member is disabled, would they be able to satisfy quorum if they video conference?
If according,
Yes.
if we, yes.
Okay. Oh, Ileana De La Rosa.
Okay, Liana, the way, we have a legal counsel, but the way I understand it is that if they meet a certain criteria, then the answer is yes. They would be able to be accepted as part of a quorum even though they are attending remotely.
Of course, there'll have to be, we have to set up a system where I guess the staff will receive medical documentation, and that'll be it.
I'm just wondering, because it's not really clear, I mean, I haven't finished reading it, I don't know if we have time, but I'm just wondering if maybe we should note that, provided that they meet the requirements, then they would satisfy quorum, just to be a little clearer. And maybe it says it somewhere else, I just didn't get an opportunity to look at it.
Yeah, I think it might be in the whereas,
Oh, okay.
clauses. It's like, I gotta track the law there, so that's,
It's in the middle of the second page.
oh,
If you look, you'll see that it talks about disability. So yes, it's here. Any further questions? Any further questions? I will entertain a motion to vote to accept the New York State Public Officers Law. Motion to accept? Grace, seconded by?
second?
Yeah, the original motion was Mari.
Okay, so original, second, all the, second by Grace. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Anyone abstaining? So moved. We officially accepted. And now that we accepted this, I think we can officially close the open hearing and move on with regular business. Moving along, the minutes for the CAB meeting of June 22nd should have been in the packets that you received by email and probably in the paperwork you got today. We will entertain a motion to accept the minutes of the June 22nd meeting. Motion to accept?
Make a motion to accept.
Grace, thank you. Seconded by Josh. Thank you for the second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Anyone abstaining? So moved. Thank you. I will now ask Artis Sanmugan, the Senior Budget Director for Community Development and Grants Management, to present her report. Artis?
Sorry, we're just technical difficulties.
Somebody had a question on YouTube? Somebody had a question on YouTube? Can I share that?
Okay.
So they asked, how will you determine the criteria of the levels of disability?
That's a good question. We need to ask the legal counsel. Adele?
Oh, I'm sorry. So sorry.
I'm
There
sorry.
was a question from YouTube. Can you
Your
repeat the
question, please
Oh.
direct it to the counsel.
Yeah, so a question on YouTube. The question was from Osendi Garcia. How will you determine the criteria of the levels of disability?
We will refer back to, because the statute does, to state law that defines disability, which is a permanent impairment of a major life function. And I have that language, I think, that we put in the email, but the staff will be referring back to that. It's defined in the statute. Do you have a follow?
No.
Okay, thanks.
Hi, good evening, guys. I was hoping to, have my report on the screen, but we are not able to, so my apologies. Oh. Sorry about that. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. My name is Arda Samuel, and I'm the Senior Director in the Budget Shop here at EYCD, and I'm making a presentation, financial presentation on the CSBG funds. First, I'd like to welcome all the new members. I listened to your reasons for why you're here, and it makes me very proud to be a New Yorker. So welcome and thank you. DYCD in 2020, city fiscal year 2024, has a CSBG budget of just under $37 million.
I'm sorry, how much?
$37 million? Can you, is this, I don't know if this is on. Is this better? Yes. My apologies. Okay. Yes, in city fiscal year 24, we have a budget of just under $37 million. The way DYCD allocates the CSBG funds we use is around 3 categories. The bulk of our spending is on our program contracts, or another way of saying our direct services. We have a much smaller pot in a category called auto contractual services, and a small pot, not as small as auto contractual, but smaller than program contracts for DYCD personnel services. The DYCD staff you see in the room here, some of their salaries are cost allocated at CSBG funds. Our program contracts is our biggest part of the CSBG funding. It represents 79% of the $37 million. That's the money that goes out the door to our providers who perform the services on DYCD's behalf. We have 7 categories of services that we spend. Oh, yay. Thank you. Great. Thank you, Anita. Yes, we have 7 program areas that we spend CSBG funds in. The biggest area is the neighborhood development group, and that in itself has 7 subcategories, 8 subcategories of program in our new RFP. We spend our NDA dollars on adult literacy, immigration assistance for applications, immigration on ESOL. We have a pot of money that we spend on senior services, on healthy families. 2 of our new programs are economic development and safety, prevention, and crime awareness. I think that covers it. So that represents, that's $50 million of the $36 million we spend on the NDA group, and that represents 52% of our overall program contracts budget. The next larger bucket is the summer youth employment program. We have allocated in city fiscal year 24, $4.8 million, and that's 17% of the program contracts budget. Some of the other program areas that are slightly smaller than this summer youth employment program are the immigration legal services, that's coming in at $2.3 million. The New York City Adult Literacy Initiative at $2.3 million, much increase from last year. The Fatherhood Initiative at just under $3 million. And one of our smallest programs now, the Adolescent Literacy, coming in at $888,000. And Services for Immigrant Families at just under $600,000. So overall, of the $37 million we have in city fiscal 24, just under 29 is spent on direct services serving the communities of New York City. Our auto contractual category are purchases and services that support our direct services. We have a healthy technical assistance budget of $1.3 million. We have a smaller pot of $193,500 that is spent to procure a vendor to do fiscal field reviews to assist DYCD to ensure that the CBOs performing direct services are following the rules and regulations of the grant. We have another small pot of money for fiscal agent services. Several of our CBOs have small budgets and not a large fiscal or budget shop. So they utilize this service where they can get payroll services and other non-direct services help from an entity. We have about $639,000 allocated for other admin services such as marketing, public awareness, information technology, strategic outreach, and partnerships, and so on. Those are all to support the direct services. And finally, the DYCD personal services budget, the CSBG portion, is just under $5.1 million. And that represents 14% of the overall CSBG allocation. So that's how we allocate the funds. To talk about our spending to date, the program contracts have an expenditure amount of $4.6 million, which is 16% of the budget. And this is especially low for this time of the year, but DYCD and most of the city agencies are moving into a new management information system. We moved into a new system 4 years ago, and now we're moving into another system. And as you can imagine, it's disruptive. We're doing it in the middle of the city fiscal year, and we have asked some of our providers to hold off on submitting invoices to be paid until we've moved into the new system. So 16% might seem really low when we're looking at a 50%, well, should be at a 50% spending rate. But as some of the old timers know, our CBOs tend to spend slowly at the start of the fiscal year, and as we come to the end of the year, their spending is more robust. And we fully expect that the year-to-date spending for this year will match past years, which would be the range of 95 to 98%. So it's low today, but don't panic. We fully expect that past performance will be repeated. We have a payments budget that's much higher than our expense budget, and that might cause some people to wonder why. So we have paid out nearly $20 million, but our expenses are only $4.6 million. And the reason for this is DYCD gives its CBOs who perform direct services, at the start of the fiscal year, we give our providers an advance so that they can have money to start providing the services. That advance represents 25% of their program budget. And when they submit invoices for the months of July through December, we reimburse those invoices at 100%. We start to recoup the advance starting in January. So January through June, if a provider, let's say in December, a provider submitted an invoice for $10,000, we would pay them $10,000. But in January, if they submitted an invoice for the same $10,000, we would hold back some of that to recoup some of the advance that we paid out at the start of the year. So for most of the year, our payments are higher than our expenses, and the reason for that is because of the advances. But by the time the year is closed, we fully recouped all of our advances, and expenses and payments at that point in time are the same. Expenses on the other contractual services is 6% of the budget, and for personal services, we're in the midst of changing up our process of how we do this, so at this point in time, we don't have any claimed expenses for PS, even though we are getting paid, I can assure you. So overall, we have spending of about 13% of the overall budget, and payments of about 26%. I'm gonna compare this now to where we were when we met in December. As of December, we had total payment on the program contracts of about $2.4 million, but since then it's doubled to 4.5. Payments went from under $6 million to just under $10 million. And our other contractual services increased by 175% from $60,000 to $165,000. So that's my presentation. I would be very happy to answer any questions you have. And again, I apologize for technical difficulties.
Thank you, Artis, for that clear, concise report, as always. Mr. Dunham?
Yes, down in Swanson, Brooklyn Borough President's Office. Just when can providers anticipate that they can start submitting invoices? I'm just concerned the city has a history of back pay and we don't want to create that system. Does DYCD have a date?
Right, DYC is transitioning from HHS to Passport in March. Before then, providers were given an opportunity, submit expenses as soon as possible. They were told that this was gonna happen, and we asked them to prepare for it. Once the transition happens, then payments will resume.
That's it, thank you.
Anybody else?
Any other brief questions?
I do wanna follow up with a response I promised when I was here in September. My colleague Chris Lewis, did the presentation for me, and I completely forgot to tell him that this question was asked. But the question was asked, how many CSBG funded providers receive an advance? The question is 100%. Everybody receives an advance.
Mari Moss, my question is, how often are they audited?
Great question. The CBOs every CSBG funded CBO receives a desk audit. That's what our fiscal field review services are paid for. At least one desk audit every year. DYCD is audited quarterly by the state. And sometimes the state might choose to audit a CBO as well at that point in time. Not the same CBO at every point in time, but generally, a few CBOs are audited every quarter along with DYCD. In addition to that, the citywide has something called a single audit, where any agency receiving federal funds over $35 million are up for an audit. And since DYCD only has two main federal funding programs, CSBG and the Workforce Employment Opportunity Act, we are audited quite frequently. So on average, I would say a CBO has at least one desk audit a year, and possibility of being audited once by either our state or federal audits every 3 years.
Thank you. Yes, my name is DJ Tapina. My question is, okay, the CBOs are audited at least once a year. What happens if somebody from the community brings a complaint about a CBO not doing what they're supposed to be doing? Would you audit them sooner or more often?
Eventually, so the first stop with that would be the agency's Department of Investigations, DOI. Many New Yorkers call in, sometimes anonymously, sometimes not, saying, I know this entity is receiving city funds, I don't believe they're doing what they're doing. And DOI will be the Department of Investigation would be the first entity to start that audit process. They would get involved, they would contact the agency who's giving that CBO funds, and they would also audit our process, as well as how we are reviewing that CBOs. So there's quite a few steps, and if something like that happens, it's very serious. We take it very serious.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Grace, well, that Leo, how does one get in touch with the DOI? I mean, is it on the,
You can Google it, you
Anyways,
can
you
Google
just gotta Google it,
DOI,
like
but
that,
there's
okay.
also, if you go to the New York City website as well, you'll find, nyc.gov and type in Department of Investigations, and you'll get a number. Yes, that's right, there you go. Susie?
Susie Tandem, Borough President, Donovan Richards' office. Are any of these programs going to be directly impacted by the proposed budget cuts?
That's a great question, Susie, as always. The answer is yes and no. So because CSBG is federal funds, whenever the city has a plan to eliminate the gap, or the PEG as it's called, what's being cut is city tax levy dollars. So this is the second round of PEG, the third round of PEG since the new administration came in. How CSBG programs are impacted is that a few years ago during the started in the Bloomberg administration, and I think continued in the de Blasio administration, CBOs receive what's called a cost of living adjustment. They also received recently called a wage enhancement initiative. And those were, the CBO would receive their regular CSBG funded dollars, and they receive extra CTL monies to pay higher salaries in both of those instances. So when this PEG came along, because we had unallocated CSBG funds, we swapped out the CTL dollars with the CSBG dollars. So CSBG funded programs were not impacted, but we still were able to meet the PEG target that the city gave to us. So the short answer is the CBOs didn't lose any money. DYCE lost some city tax levy, but we were able to cover it with CSBG dollars.
Artist, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and welcome to all.
We will now entertain a motion to accept the financial program quarterly report. Motion to accept.
Motion.
Mr. Donovan, second by Grace. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Anyone abstaining? So moved. Before I ask Deputy Commissioner Mike Bobbitt to come up and give the commissioner's report, I want to welcome a special guest who's here today, his lovely daughter Naomi, who graces us with her presence. So everyone say hello to Naomi. Naomi, you are one lucky young lady. You have an outstanding dad, a gem of an individual. Deputy Commissioner Bobbitt, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Naomi, who I think she did very well on her midterms, which allows her to be with us this evening. I have a lot that I want to cover, and I want to be mindful of time, so I'm going to try to speak with a fair degree of velocity and take questions at the end, and I may edit myself as I go. One, since we have a fair number of new members, Susan, can you have the staff come in real quickly? So I just want to make sure that everyone is aware that people were very helpfully moving about the room and making sure that this meeting is running smoothly. So we want to recognize Reggie Gibson, Demary Oramas, Elizabeth Adedeji, who are our newest NEB members. So let's clap it up for them. I know you've all been hearing from them directly. I want to recognize Lily Dasgupta, who has been with the unit for a year. She's actually out in the field this evening, Brooklyn 1 meeting, or else she would be here as well. I want to acknowledge Susan Patterson, who, if I didn't report this, as part of the restructure, Susan was promoted to director of this team. So let's clap it up for Susan, who, because of her longstanding experience with the unit, can really coach all the new staff. So there's new energy, but there's an existing long abiding history of what works out in the field. So we're really looking to be intentional about putting that together. I want to recognize again Karen Pitt Gonzalez, who's keeping track of the RSVPs to the CAB meetings. Thank you for being here, helping us keep quorum and sending out reminders, as well as the keeper of the files that, as we've reported before, the Department of State audits every quarter. So I'm going to say this and acknowledge the team again, and then they can continue to do so for the back of the room. Between October and December, DYC held 30 meet and greet meetings, and as longstanding CAB members will remember, these are meetings that are co-hosted by the NEB members, where we try to link the neighborhood development area contracted providers with the NEB members who rated and read their proposals. So when we do this needs assessment, we determine the highest priority needs, and then we seek strategies, and we ask the providers to do the work. Then they actually get to meet the folks that do the work and know that we have actually tried to move toward making the impact. So I think I reported this before. We have redesigned our approach to these meetings. Meeting with NDA providers is cool and it's necessary, but in the ways that we do business now, it's insufficient. So far, we've had 38 NDA providers, 40 other DYC funded providers, 106 NEB members, and 144 community residents that have attended these meet and greets. So that's 30 of the meetings. There's another, you can clap if you want, and there's another 11 meetings to go. So that really reflects Commissioner Howard's one DYCD approach. If you do business in the community, we want you to know the NAB members, we want the NAB members to know you, and we want to talk about how to maximally leverage these relationships, whether funded through CSBG or otherwise. And I have one more for you. NAB recruitment, as you know, is an ongoing effort. So over 2023, 45 members have stepped off the NABs for various reasons. However, this team has recruited 57 new members, so we've increased the net. The present total of members now is 287. So we've seen more applications this year than prior years. Thank you, Anita, for pointing that out. This is the kind of dynamic activity that we want to continue to see for this team. We worked with Strategic Communications and IT to get an electronic application created. That's working, so we're seeing more applications because we make it easier for community residents to apply. The staff is going to continue to do what they do to recruit and to retain NAB members, and hopefully with the help of our elected public officials' recommendations, we will have full boards in every NDA soon. And we look forward to continuing to update the CAB on how NAB recruitment is going throughout this year. DYC strives to ensure that all the CSBG funded programs have strong internal controls, and that includes for CSBG income eligibility. So you've heard Artis's reports, you know how important it is when we get audited by the state, that we paid attention to all the compliance regulations. New York State Department of State has asked all the community action agencies to pay close attention to this issue. So on January 18th, we hosted a meeting that was attended of about 200 staff of CSBG funded contracts to review our revised new income eligibility guidelines. And we answered a lot of questions from providers. We have a portal where they can continue to submit questions. And then by program area, we're continuing to do follow-up to make sure that everybody gets it clear and gets it right. And we'll continue to give white glove customer service to try to help push that along, push that forward. After issuing 3 different solicitations for the NDA initiative, when I use the shorthand NDA initiative, is there anybody who doesn't know what I'm talking about? There's a couple. We're awash in acronyms sometimes at DYCD. So there's a lot of citywide work we do, and then there's neighborhood focused work that we do. So when I pointed to this team and what I was mentioning earlier, periodically doing needs assessment in every community, and then in neighborhoods where we target our services, we issue our request for proposal related to the highest presenting needs in those neighborhoods. So when I refer to 41 NDAs, there's 41 neighborhoods. And when I refer to the 41 NABs, there's an advisory board in every neighborhood where we're targeting services. So as a result of all that process, we released a lot of requests for proposals. And there were a few that went unawarded. So this is what I'm pointing to now. We have reissued twice since the initial issuance of the NDA RFP. However, there are 5 competitions that have funding that's unallocated. So to ensure these funds are allocated to the assigned NDA, the program team has continued to reach out to current NDA CBOs to try to secure providers for the following program areas in the following areas. Immigrant Services Application Assistance. So we're looking for a provider in Staten Island, Northern Staten Island, from Brooklyn 10, which is Dagger Heights and Bay Ridge, and in Brooklyn 3, which is Bedford and Stuyvesant Heights. And for Immigrant Services, EOL Civics in Manhattan 12, which is Inwood and Washington Heights, and Queens 9, which is Richmond Hill and Ozone Park. So I hope by, if not the next meeting, by the closeout meeting, that we'll have a status update about that for you all. I want to let this group know there will be a fatherhood concept paper released soon. Can't give details now, but certainly you'll receive notice, and we want everyone in the larger community to know once that's released. And we're also in the process of stakeholder engagement for the eventual release of an immigrant services concept paper. Oh, my notes are out of order. 1 sec. Confuse myself. How did I do that? Yep, and you'll receive updates about these at the next CAB meeting. But as time allows, Ron Zhang, our Associate Commissioner, later in this evening, he'll give some highlights about the literacy RFP. Now that is out. Providers are responding to that already. He'll give some summary so I don't have to eat up time to do that right now. I want to talk a little bit about One DYCD, and I mentioned Commissioner Howard that is his vision and his shorthand for what we're trying to achieve. Across several aspects, the Community Development Division has reconstituted itself to adopting a community development plus public safety approach. On one front, I've been joining the Commissioner and the other Deputy Commissioners to meet with each borough president and each district attorney. And as part of those meetings, we've reviewed DYC's new anti-gun violence portfolio, other hyper-local issues of concern, and our intentional wraparound services to support individuals and families, including specifically the entire anti-poverty portfolio that we always discuss, and a review of any CAB attendance concerns and NEB referral opportunities. So just this afternoon, we met with the Staten Island Borough President's Office, and I would consider the meetings have been quite positive and productive. Am I right that we had Staten Island as part of our role? I didn't get the name though. I put that up for a second, but we have, okay. So I want to thank you for attending, and we would thank you. Yeah, okay, thank you. DYC is planning to undertake significant training using a crime prevention and community development program called the Safe Growth Strategy. It's designed with the intent of creating neighborhood-focused safety planning by community stakeholders, and it involves training for participants to become certified, here's another acronym, in CEPTED. And CEPTED stands for Crime Prevention Through Environmental Design. So the CEPTED approach has participants work in groups on selected local projects and to conduct analysis and formulate plans to address identified safety problems. So as DYC looks to identify the specific neighborhoods where we're going to pilot this approach, understand that the NEB members in the communities that we target are a vital, important part of the plan. So I want the CAB to know that, just as Anita and her team are letting the NEB members know that. And we also have in mind the strategy, so if the neighborhoods that won't be reached initially, we're still going to communicate it to the NEB members so they understand what it is that's taking place. Some of the stuff I was going to say I killed because our board chair did a great job at the outset of talking about that. I want to thank NABLU, I want to thank External Affairs for reminding you all about this meeting. I want to thank you here. I've already emailed the commission that we made quorum, so you can clap it up for yourselves for paying attention. And I think the last thing I want to say is, like, I was clapping and I'm clapping right now. And after today, I'm going to stop clapping because before the pandemic, the board was accustomed to the idea that we would meet in person. And so what we've reviewed the open meetings law is the pandemic is over and we're going to go back to meeting in person. So I want and expect, and I want you to want and expect that we're going to continue to make quorum. It's not going to be an unusual thing. It was actually exceptional. It was unusual. It was frustrating that we did make quorum for the last 2 meetings. So I want to close on that, which I think is a positive note, but it's an accountability note. And this is something, I have a division meeting on Monday where I want to talk about 2 words that are very important to me. This is not the commissioner's report, this is not the deputy commissioner's report. Accountability and teamwork. And so I'll be talking to my whole team about that, and I appreciate greatly what the chair raised, which maybe you want to pick up under new business about this buddy system, where along with the staff reaching out and reminding about meetings, the importance of meetings, the importance of committee meetings, as well as the board in full, that maybe you will also remind each other about the importance of this. We are not here for fun. We're here because we are actively addressing the issues of poverty among New Yorkers. And that's what drives us, and that's why important business gets conducted here. And rest assured, my team, as well as the other deputy commissioners' teams, we go to work every day on these issues, and we need and want your continued support. So let's continue to pledge to make quorum at future meetings, I hope. So along with my addendum, that concludes the commissioner's report.
Any questions for the deputy commissioner?
Can you, sorry. Can you just repeat the certification? What is it, September?
CEPTED, oops, I put my notes away. No, I have it. Yeah. I know it, but then I get to watch the acronyms.
And my other
Good, no, it's crime prevention through environmental design. So consider, if you will, how certain communities will identify a street light that's been put out or design a mural or whatever, points of intersection, hyper-local conversations about what's going to promote safety and increase the sense of thriving, well-being, and connectedness in a neighborhood. That's going to be the lens that DYC is going to apply, probably to some of the 6 target precincts, which I've reported on previously, is where we're focusing some of Office of Neighborhood Safety team and all of our efforts.
And then my other question is, how much of that is, or do you have any idea, has there been any discussion around targeting young women as well? Because a lot of times we hear anti-gun and we immediately pivot to young men.
Thank you for raising that. In the interest of time, my response now will be brief, but then we can carry that forward in a later discussion. The model intends to be inclusive, so along with DYC funded providers, along with NEB members, along with members of the NYPD themselves, along with members of the business community, we want, and through the model, must promote, as I understand from the people who train on the model, you need to have a holistic, wide-ranging set of participants in the meeting, and then they conduct, and this team will be familiar with the community needs assessment, then they conduct a needs assessment related to safety. So your question is well received. Any one of these neighborhoods should be thinking about that from various equitable lenses: gender, race, prior experiences with law enforcement as well as with crime. All of those lenses ideally would be applied. But we'll ask colleagues to come, and I don't want to take away from Ron's presentation today on literacy, but we can have a conversation about SEPTA at one of these meetings.
Hi, Donovan. Do we have an update on the timeline when we'll have the report from the needs assessment?
It's a good question. Do we have a timeline?
When would the report be released, since that was the most?
Thank you for asking. The short answer is, although I had anticipated that we would have something at the close of the last calendar year, I think there'll be something forthcoming probably before the close of this winter, so before the spring. I've reviewed a very preliminary draft, but there's some internal vetting that will have to happen before it's finalized and then before it's released.
Thank you, Deputy Commissioner. Just wanted, Marielle from Manhattan Borough President Office. Just wanted to make sure that I understood correctly that DYCD has kind of put forward twice now the RFPs around immigrant services. Was that correct? Did I hear correctly?
To clarify, we entered into contracts with Neighborhood Development Areas Initiative providers in June of 2022. So I was making reference to the NDA initiative. There are five competitions that I mentioned, 2 or 3 of them relating to ESOL and 2 or 3 relating to AOS. Those specific competitions, we're still, since we didn't find a viable proposer, we're still exploring strategies to try to get those services delivered to those neighborhoods. Sure.
Hi, Grace again. We're going back to SEPTA. I'm just a little confused. So is there gonna be CBOs or providers that come to speak in the neighborhoods and say community organizations, or is it gonna be the police? How is that gonna work?
I'll give a quick answer and then I'll return to what I said, which is we should have proper time and a full presentation at a future CAB meeting. The safe growth model is to include various stakeholders in a community so that they're advancing conversations as a community about what would promote safety, and then rolling up sleeves and enlisting other allies to try to advance whatever those objectives are that need to be advanced. From what I understand so far, and we'll get more into this at a subsequent presentation, there's different stakeholders that would need to be present, that would include members of the business community, that would include members of community-based organizations, community nonprofit community. I didn't mention the faith-based community, it should include faith-based community. And what I wanted to make sure I got across to this group is, under the one DYC philosophy, it also needs to include the NEB members. So as you know, and anyone who's an NEB member before coming onto the CAB, we are demonstrating strongly and regularly that we're trying to integrate and infuse what NEB members have both already done and anecdotally have asked DYC to have a bigger appetite to do. Do you know what I mean? So like, they're like, go, we want you in that conversation. Yeah, that's the approach, and we can share more about it at a CAB meeting, future CAB meeting.
So thrilled that you mentioned faith-based and also just to touch on the statistical outcomes that we capture every year when we're talking about the needs of the community assessments. But to piggyback on what another person questioned, there was another report that came out before the pandemic and before the migrant crisis that the largest number of homeless populations were domestic violence situations. And we're not seeing that in a lot of our data. So my question is, how can we be proactive about the things that we don't capture in our data when there's a need?
I think the best response for the moment is for me to take that under advisement. I could weigh in further, but I'm conscious of the board's time. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah. But let me offer one other thing that is hopefully supportive of what you're saying. Commissioner Howard brought on a new associate commissioner, Denise Ramirez, who helps the agency further focus on equity. And so that's going to entail different lenses. We have the ArcGIS software, and so periodically there's different maps that Denise is helping draw. Some of them are simple, straightforward, simple but necessary in terms of mapping all of our investments in real space, so we can look and see where all the programs are. But we have talked about moving on the appetite that we've already articulated, and so the specific data point you're pointing to is very particular, but in terms of applying different lenses, homelessness, gender, LGBTQI stat, like there's different ways that we could look to cut and slice data. So I know there's an appetite, I just don't have a rollout plan to share with you the specifics how we're applying that sort of thing. I expect, I expect in the coming months, the agency will, this is sort of tangential, but will roll out a new sense of disability and accessibility, because I know that's one of the things that Denise and the commissioner's direction is rolling out. So I think, again, those are like different cuts and lenses that we'll look to apply on existing work.
Thank you very much,
Thank you.
We will now entertain a motion to accept the commissioner's report. Motion to accept?
Second.
Your name?
Marielle.
Seconded by? All those in favor say aye. Any nays? Anyone abstaining? So moved. Gives me great pleasure to ask Associate Commissioner Ron Zhang to speak about adult literacy RFP overview. And since we are running late, I would suggest that if somebody has any questions for the Associate Commissioner, I'm sure he's willing to stay after the meeting to answer your questions. Commissioner?
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, everybody. Let me start by congratulating everybody for each quorum tonight. Congratulations again. In the interest of time, so I'm not going to muddle with the technology and put it on screen, but as Deputy Commissioner mentioned, that adult literacy RFP has been released. CYTD is actually in the middle of scheduling a pre-proposal conference rescheduling for the early January, so stay tuned for that. I'll give you a quick overview of our of this literacy RFP. So there are 3 program options in this RFP. Adolescent literacy. This targets middle schoolers, including homework help, engagement, project-based activities, and leverage digital technologies. Then we have adult literacy, ABE, HSE program that provides instruction in reading, writing, and GED prep classes. Then there is adult literacy ESOL program targeting immigrant population, provides English language classes. So these are the 3 different program options in this RFP. As you all know, that these programs are actually, they have been around since, the last RFP about 15 years ago. So that means, we have this program right now. But based on the stakeholder input, UICD has made some changes to our program models. I'll highlight a couple. For adult literacy, program, we have added a family development coach to the staff having to support the provision of case management and education, career, and counseling to all participants. And we have, made our program more flexible in terms of scheduling and delivering classes. Up to 60% of the total proposed instruction hours can be remote. As you all know right now, everything's in person. You know, through the pandemic, we've learned how to do classes remotely, and now we are, you know, taking advantage of that, you know, technology and the expertise within our staff. You know, we're in the RFP now, we have a hybrid model, okay? We have in person, you also have remote that address the needs of, you know, more, you know, of our population. These are two key changes in adult literacy. That adolescent literacy program, as you all know, it is an after-school program for middle schoolers. So we want to make the program more appealing to young people, to make it more fun, right? So there is a lot of emphasis in this new RFP on digital literacy. Students are expected to develop e-portfolios that will engage them in projects involving technologies such as, you know, search engines, social media, Photoshop, PowerPoint, you know, video creation, editing, etc. So eventually, at the end of the year, each student will have a portfolio of several projects they do over the course of the year using technology, and there will be an end of the year kind of celebration, you know, a you know, showcase of their portfolio and a celebration. So that's what we're going to do. We hope that we'll engage young people in, you know, using technology and also, you know, develop the literacy. For all literacy programs, DYCD will prioritize its investment in literacy programs using a proportional formula based on neighborhood tabulation area, NTAs, as the geographic unit of analysis to determine location and the funding allocations for the programs. So this is something new in terms of where the money goes, and we welcome people to come to our proposal conference to, you know, listen to, you know, explanations of this if there are questions on that. And we have made it very clear that all questions regarding this RFP should be transmitted in writing to the agency contact by using the discussion forum in Passport. Just one last thing. So we have anticipated contract awards. Adolescent literacy program, we anticipate 7 awards. Adult literacy ABHSE, 24 awards. And adult literacy ESL program, 58 awards. Anticipated program contract term is 3 years, from July 1st, 24 through June 30th, 27. All right, that's the, you know, that's basically the quick overview of the adult literacy RFP. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll now entertain a motion to accept the adult literacy RFP overview. Motion to accept. Grace, seconded by Mr. Donovan. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Anyone abstaining? So moved. The executive committee met on January 18th. The meeting began at 6:16. We approved the agenda for tonight's meeting. We had a review of the CFBG refunding application for fiscal year 2024. We reviewed the governance committee report. We reviewed the program committee report and the strategic partnership report. And the meeting was concluded about an hour later. Actually, at 6:57 p.m. I will now ask my first vice chair, Greg Hamburg, to present the governance committee report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening. Happy New Year to everyone. Thanks to everything that we've heard, I can do this report in literally a minute because, one, we discussed Open Meetings Act, which you all heard. We've been successful in achieving quorum. Again, thanks to the members of DYCD and all involved for making that happen. We discussed the public and low-income sector vacancies, and again, based on what you've heard and seen here, we've made a lot of progress in that area, and we discussed the absences for the last meeting, which when we meet again, that would be a much more positive and better report. So that is the 1-minute summary of the Governance Committee meeting. Want to welcome all of the new members. It's exciting to see new members. It's exciting to see our longstanding members. I love the idea of the buddy system, and I love the new energy that is here in the board. And certainly want to give a special shout out to my former executive committee member and my good friend Melissa. It is good to have her back. She has got a lot of institutional knowledge being on this board. She has the community side, she has the CAB executive committee side. If you really want to know how this works, pick her brain. She breathes this and lives this every day. But thank you all, and look forward to seeing you all at the next meeting.
Thank you. Will entertain a motion to accept the Governance Committee report. Motion to accept. Joshua, seconded by? Mine. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Anyone abstaining? So moved. We will now hear the Program Committee report by somebody who does an incredible amount of work and worked extremely hard to ensure that we have quorum. Anita?
Yes. Good to see you all. Is this on?
Yes. We
You hear me? Okay, great, because my voice is not 100%. Even usually it's very low. Program committee is where you hear about all of the NDA program. And sometimes you hear about other DYCD programs there. So it's great to come to me, and I'm talking to the new people here, you should come to the committee meetings. The program committee met on January 10th at 6 o'clock, and minutes in detail are in the board packet. Natalie Green, Deputy Director of DYCD NDA Community Action Programs, introduced 2 of the NDA programs on high school educational support. This is for high school students that are below credit and need help to be able to graduate. The first organization is Common Point Queens, and their NDA program for high school is called It Takes a Village. They have the program in John Bowne High School in Queens, and it targets 9 to 12th graders who are failing one or more subjects or chronically absent from school and have a GPA of 75 or below. This year, they're more focused on the freshmen in school. They have coaches that help the students develop their individual service plan. They work together with the staff. They set goals, and the goals are supported through the coaches and the support system throughout the school, teachers, guidance counselors, and needs. Participants earn incentives, including monetary incentives for key performance improvements, such as GPA increase or decrease, and in their decrease in their number of school absences. So it's not GPA. They also get social emotional learning reward and the opportunity to participate in a 6-week paid internship opportunity. And services provided: check-ins, counseling, success mentoring, academic support, support groups, after-school enrichment groups, group workshops, college access, community field trips, and more. We do activities with them throughout the year. That's coming from Queens. The other provider is Chinese American Planning Council. And their target students that have a 75 or below in math, science, history, or English. Chronic absences or low income within the MBA. They encourage them to try new things and be friends. Many students will not, because their grades are low, and they will join to make new friends. They will. Services offered. We have a court, like mock court, Discord, Instagram, youth council to help and support the social media engagement. Outcomes are improve their social emotional learning skills, improve grades 1 point above the 75. A lot of students join because of the incentives in working and internships. They are prepared for the future. As I said, there's a lot more in this report, but it's in your board, so if you want to see that. And I encourage you to come to the program committee, because it's always a different program each time. And that's what you hear directly from the program providers. And I just want to say also, with your buddy system, it's fine. We have an orientation for the CAP for new members, and veteran members can attend as well. Every 6 months usually. The next one will be in March. Happens right after the governance committee, so I encourage you to come to the governance committee, especially if you're new and don't understand yet what you're supposed to do here. Okay? And that's the report.
We will now entertain a motion to accept the program committee report. Motion to accept. Seconded by Valerie. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Anyone abstaining? So moved. Susie, if you can be so gracious and give us the strategic parking report in short, please.
Yes. I also realize I am the one person keeping us from adjourning, so I will do my best to keep this short. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to all of the new members, and great to be with all of the regulars. Looking forward to getting to know all of you. As I mentioned, I represent President Donovan Richards from Queens, and I also have the honor and privilege of serving as third vice chair, and which means I chair the Strategic Partnership Committee. And we had our meeting on January 11th, and there were two main items on the agenda. One was an excellent presentation by Sarah Whitney, who is Senior Director of Employer Engagement and Partnerships at DYCD Workforce Connect, and she came with her two team members, Dior Lunsford, and Jacqueline Chan. They gave out an awesome PowerPoint about SYEP, Summer Youth Employment Program. Is everyone more or less familiar with SYEP? I mean, okay. So, a couple of things that I just want to mention are, they talked about the different types of work sites. Some are really prestigious institutions that youth ages 14 to 24 can apply to have internships at, and some are grassroots organizations that, as you know, do very impactful work. The other thing they talked about were the targeted initiatives. Ladders for Leaders is specifically for youth 16 to 4 years old, and that I believe is for youth with some additional professional experience, and it certainly gives them a contact with a network of more than 10,000 previous participants. The other targeted initiative is the SYEP Pride Initiative, which is relatively new, and it offers LGBTQ plus youth additional programming and support. The timeline, I feel, is available through materials that you've received,
And it's on the website.
and it's on the website. The second presentation was by Susan Patterson, Director of the NABC Liaison Unit, and this is important. Susan gives us the numbers, the update on the numbers, and the good news is DYCD has filled, there you are, Susan. DYCD has filled 188 seats and has 58 vacancies. Those are the DYCD seats on the NABs, but elected officials have more work to do. They have 68 seats filled and 178 vacancies. So we talked a lot about that, and learned about ways that Anita Antonetti and her team, because Anita is the conductor of the orchestra for those who don't know that, and the work that we all do together. She and Susan told us about ways that they are getting the word out and connecting with elected officials and communities, especially through the meet and greets. So we will keep monitoring and trying to do the outreach to get all of those seats filled, and we welcome your help with that. And that's the report.
Thank you very much. I'll entertain a motion to accept the Strategic Partnership Committee report. Grace, seconded by Marielle. Thank you for the second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Anyone abstaining? So moved. Old business. We see how important it is to achieve quorum, and I thank each and every one of you for showing up tonight. So thank you and welcome to all the new members. New business? Need it?
Really quickly, just if we're gonna be not having enough time to ask questions, I just recommend a running document that so we don't each individually have to email Anita, it's just a document with the questions that come up that weren't answered, so then DYC could answer it.
Excellent idea. We'll see to figure that out. Thank you. Next meeting is scheduled for Thursday, April 4th at 6 p.m. Today we started at 6:15. Would be greatly appreciated if we could start at 6 p.m. sharp. It would give us more time for questions, and we aim to start at 6 and end by 7:30. Once again, thank you very much to everyone for attending, and thank you to the EYCD and their staff for the efforts they put in to ensure that we achieved quorum and all the work they do throughout the year. I want to wish you all a great evening. Thanks again for coming. I will now entertain a motion to adjourn. It is now 7:39 p.m. Motion to adjourn. Second by Greg. All those in favor say aye. Aye. I assume there's no nays and no one abstaining. So moved. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you.